Hello world, I'm trying this broadcast again. I already did it once and then it was all garbled, and chances are it'll be garbled again. I took it off Bluetooth and just doing regular phone line transmission. I don't know what the problem is, whether I'm out too far out remotely or whatever, but I'm having to do the whole thing all over again. So, welcome to the 195th Climate Change Emergency Protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It is September 2nd, 2022. Next week will be number 196, Climate Change Emergency Protest. I thought last week was 195. I guess this is 195. So it doesn't matter at this point. We should have been done with this at number 2. There should have been action taken by our governments. And instead, many years later, we're still at it. So nothing's being done on a significant level. Don't kid yourself that a couple electric cars and some batteries or whatever and wind turbines are going to solve things, because they're not. We need actual severe action right now. Things are spinning out of control, and to think otherwise is you're very uninformed as to what's happening. You might think that your politician is doing stuff one way or the other, and they are, which is absolutely nothing. So I'm at the second day's battle here, where General Sickles decided to stick himself out and leave a perfectly good position along Union lines. It came out 1 mile forward towards Confederate troops, and he is less than 600 yards away from the Confederate troops during the Battle of Gettysburg. And this does figure into climate change. He's with the 3rd Corps. This is called a salient, where you stick out and you're going to get hit in every direction by attack. And he did. He lost 40% of his troops, and he left the north side Little Round Top vulnerable, and that could have cost everything. Luckily, it got filled in by the 5th Corps with General Sykes, Strong Vincent, who paid for it with his life, and Joshua Chamberlain in the 20th Maine, who did the famous bayonet charge. I asked that you share this video because Facebook is ratcheting me down again, because I put a photo up of the Loire Valley in France and the river, and showed it was drying up, and it's only 40 centimeters deep, I think it is in some parts. But anyways, Facebook took umbrage at it. They have someone reviewing it from Iowa, which is Climate Change Denial Central, and I refuse to take down the photo. It is a National Geographic photo, and it's the truth. And there are rivers drying up all over Europe right now, and around the world. China, especially the Yangtze River. So, or that, or floods, one or the other. So, severe heat. So I ask that you share it if you feel like it. I'm going to cough at times because I get a tickle in my throat when I do these talks. So anyways, this was, as I said, filled in by the 5th Corps. Sickles did a stupid choice. So he stuck his troops way out here and is in an undefensible position. It does figure into climate change. He could have lost everything. The second day's battle of Gettysburg could have lost, which caused the entire battle to be lost of Gettysburg. The public would have turned on Lincoln, and he would have lost the next re-election, which was coming up, and which would have caused the whole war to end, as well as the country to be split in two at least, and which would eventually have cost the whole world an issue as far as defending itself for World War I and then for World War II. General Hancock was asked, what should we do about Sickles? Should we help him? And he said, no, just hang in there, because he's out in a salient, and they will come tumbling back. And he was right about that. You can't hold this position, and when you do decide to come back now, you're going to pay horrifically with it, which he did, with his friends' lives and his co-union officers' lives, as well as losing his leg during the battle. The entire West right now, from the Mississippi on, is on to the Pacific Ocean. Western United States is being assailed right now, just like a salient. It's untenable and unable to preserve it right now. There are over 48 million people in California area, and under this heat wave going on right now, and it's untenable. You can't stay there. You're going to have to leave eventually. They're in the worst drought in 1,200 years. Get that? 1,200 years. Worst drought in 1,200 years. So there are fires, floods, as I said, severe drought. Lake Mead, Lake Powell are at its lowest point ever, and they're getting down to the point where they're going to eventually end up in Deadpool if things end up that way, and it won't be able to generate electricity, let alone water, for everyone. The result of this is crop loss, water loss for massive populations. If your air conditioner runs out due to electricity going down, the grid going down, especially during this heat wave coming up, it's an indication where they're headed. People are going to die because the air conditioner can't run, and it's 104 degrees, which is 40 degrees Celsius, or 45 degrees Celsius, 112 So it's a horrible situation right now. You end up having habitat loss through fire. You end up farmlands and farms being lost due to bankruptcy. If they have a 40% loss like Sickles Group did during this battle here, you end up losing 20 million people. California's economy right now is the fifth largest in the world. So, if they're a country in itself, they'd have the fifth largest economy in the world. So, like Sickles, they could lose California, the entire West, the entire USA, and eventually the whole world, because we support the world, like it or not, with economic help. And, without us doing that, who's going to fill in the gaps? Who's going to be altruistic and do that? I'd say no other country does what we do. However, our policies sometimes are horrific. So what happens at the end? People are stranded. There's no government support at that point. The question is, what about the homeless people right now, and the houseless people? They don't have air conditioners. When it's 104 degrees and temperature gets down to 80 at night or 90, they could easily die of heat exhaustion and things like that. The elderly, what about the elderly when the power goes out? They cannot handle the heat like a young person can, in their 20s or whatever. Kids in schools, kids absolutely cannot handle the heat at all. They don't do well in heat. There's a real danger of things being lost, and they need to get to it with climate change. There's no escape once this starts happening. Once the grid collapses, and they're saying not to use electricity or that much from 4 to 10 p.m. out west right now. You end up, and you can't charge your electric cars also during that period of time. The grid's in danger. If it's happening now, it's going to get worse and worse as people rely on electricity more and more. So you end up with a cascade effect. So that ends up being a salient like Sickles, where you're just sticking out and you cannot hold this position. You're going to end up having to come up with some sort of policy. This is going to end horribly otherwise. Millions of people are going to die at present rate if we don't do something about it. Lake Mead, Lake Powell are running out of water. You cannot live without water more than 3 days, especially in heat. So no politician, senators, congressman, or any president has done anything basically severe concerning climate change. And they knew all about it. I mean, it's been going on for years. There's no plan to build cities in the East Coast at all, or central, like the Appalachian area or things like that, to house these people once they decide to leave. And they will. It'll be in droves. It'll be by the millions, and they'll be climate change refugees. Right now, no college or high schools are protesting. What's going on with you guys? The college protests don't exist. What about University of New Mexico, University of Arizona, Colorado? What about USC? What about UCLA? What about University of California, San Diego? What about University of Utah and those people? What is going on with you guys? Your future's in jeopardy. You aren't going to have a career. You're going to college for a career that doesn't exist if things persist this way. You got to evaluate what's going on. And just like the kids did during Vietnam, the college kids, they turned out in droves and actually changed the course of the whole war. And you can change things. In 1980, I went up to... I was 20 years old. I drove all the way by myself up to New York City from my college or from here, Gettysburg, which is nearby, and went to the nuclear protest in New York City, and over 1 million of us showed up, which was huge back then. And we actually got the nuclear treaties changed, and Russia and the United States are no longer at odds with each other concerning nuclear proliferation and threatening each other with nuclear war. So it's coming, like it or not. You got to quit playing your computer games. You got to move on. You can't act like everything's okay, because it's not. Get away from your computer games. Stop this stuff. Stop watching TV. Everyone, stop watching TV, especially in the West. You guys, this is all happening around you, and you're just holed up in your house thinking everything will be okay, and it's not. It's getting worse and worse. And this is a baby computer. It's your babysitter, and you got to get away from it or use it to the right effect. And start broadcasting, start doing protests, things like that. There's no press or media telling the truth as to what's happening. So, without the press and media, you got to come up with your own research as to what's going on. Quit waiting to be spoon-fed by the major networks. It's not happening, and some of the information is horribly wrong. So you're getting climate change refugees right now. People are spilling out of their houses, losing their homes, and places are running out of water, or there are fires and floods, things like that. In Kentucky, you are a climate change refugee. You've been forced out by flooding. So I was watching TV the other day, and I love Penn State University. But now there's a second professor on there saying, All they need to do is level off carbon dioxide and everything will be okay. It will not. Carbon dioxide right now is 422 to 424 parts per million. Only 280 parts per million is the safe zone. And the professor was making the assumption or statement that everything will level off and be fine at 420 parts per million, and temperatures will miraculously stop growing and things like that, and things will stop happening on a bad scale. That is an absolute straight-up, bold-faced lie. There's no evidence of that. For example, 3 million years ago, when carbon dioxide was 400 parts per million, not 420 as is now, oceans were 70 feet higher. Do you understand this? Oceans were 70 feet higher the last time carbon dioxide was this high. Temperatures weren't 1.5 degree guardrails are saying now, oh, that's safe. It is not. 1.5 is horrific. We're going to have a catastrophic situation. But it's not even 1.5. It was 3 degrees higher Celsius 3 million years ago when carbon dioxide was not even as high as it is now. So only 280 parts per million is a safe zone. So you will be forced to leave, just like Sickles was forced to leave this area and had to retreat and got bombarded then by the Confederates as he got chased, and it caused horrific losses. He professed that he was the savior of Gettysburg. Actually, he almost cost the whole war. Lincoln could have just lost everything, and the country, as I said, could have lost everything. So you will be forced to leave the West at the present circumstances. Unless things change severely, you're going to have to leave. You're going to have to tumble back, and you got to start making plans as to what you're going to do with your life. The government will not be there to help you. You're seeing this in Jackson, Mississippi right now, where there are 180,000 people without water, and they're mealy-mouthing their way into it rather than mobilizing massive amounts of people and fixing the infrastructure with bulldozers and things like that. Right now Jackson, Mississippi is out of water, and that's 180,000 people. Now there's an element of racism involved, which 100 out of the 180,000, 145,000 are black. So this isn't by circumstance. This is racism, governmental racism that's gone on for decades there, just like Flint, Michigan. So there's a fat chance that the government will be there to help you. Is this willful ignorance? Is it due to greed? Most likely it's that, and then also elections. They want to keep their parties in power. They want to keep themselves in power. So they do whatever the corporations say and whatever the dictates are, rather than doing what is right for humanity. You need people in charge that are doing what's right for humanity, or are willing to do what's right, and don't worry about re-election. So either get busy protesting or get busy dying. The circumstances right now, you high school and college kids, it's untenable. You cannot stay in that position. You will lose your position one way or the other, whether you're forced out or whether you decide to leave. So you're better off protesting and getting this under control, or at least some sort of semblance of control of your whole life. So like Sickles, you cannot just sit here and take what's coming. You must do something and take immediate action. So I'll catch you next week. Hopefully this transmission worked. I'm not doing a third one. I will see you later. Bye.